Why do you look at the camera the whole time? Well, Tom, I'll tell you. Sometimes you see that even on Fox when they're talking, someone is saying something and they start talking to the camera. Like, don't look at the camera. Just ask your question.
They do.
Well, Lisa, what I'd like to say is, what are you doing?
I used to do that a lot, actually. When I first started doing Red Eye,
But that's different.
I spent a little too much time because I was the host. But then I would do my hosty like this, and then I would go around the table. And as people were talking, I kept looking at the camera. And then when I watched myself, I said, dude, you have to just be more
be in the room.
Be in the room.
But when you're saying, coming up next, like that kind of thing. But the regular stuff is, I don't want to get too close on this.
Bill Lobley is here. And I think some of my people, especially my Locals people, are familiar with Bill Lobley because he's on Locals. And they know you from that.
I'm on Locals not nearly enough. Yeah. So I'm just saying, I apologize to anybody who's been like, I follow you and you don't post a lot.
But you have a free ticket to my Locals at all times. And I'm always thinking like, go ahead, post more stuff there because
I honestly, in terms of like screen time, I've been like in the comments section of your Locals more than I've been on my own Locals channel. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like I'll watch some Tom stuff and make comment. Oh, Bill Lobley's here, But in terms of doing stuff, the last thing I did was like during the Screen Actors Guild strike to show people the studio that I set up at a vacation house. So yeah, it's been a while, and I do apologize.
Well, I think people are really into that kind of stuff, and the thing is, we will. There's probably a lot of people like Tass is always drawing us, and sometimes Taz just draws Bill Lobley, right? Like just kind of a freelance.
The funny thing is that Taz would post it onto Facebook. My Facebook got hacked by an overzealous video game fan, and I can't post on it anymore. So once again, like the Tom Shalhoub thing, Taz is posting more on my Facebook page than I am.
Wow, wait a minute.
What I mean?
I want to hear this story. So, well, but first, let's do your CV because people want to know, like, who are these? What are you talking about? Video game? You are employed in the video game industry, and you have fans, and you have lunatic fans.
Let's just say they're rabid. I don't think they've crossed the line into lunacy yet.
But
you're going to have to lock them up just to get the foam out of their mouth. But
you've done like Comic-Con type of signings, right? Where you, but what do you sign?
I'm just really getting started with the signings and stuff, and I think my next stop is either Rockville, Maryland, or Bloomington, Illinois. But yeah, you bring prints of the characters you've done. So, and they want good quality prints, and you bring your silver Sharpie, and then you sign. They give you money, and then you sign it. Whatever they want to say. Maybe it's a quote from one of your characters. Sometimes they even ask for an 8x10. So there's a service called Streamily, which is basically, it's like it probably was born of the pandemic, where you could get in touch with your favorite celebrities, video game people, voice actors, and send for the picture, and they do like a live signing via the internet.
And so you've done that, and then
I've done that.
You put a couple of dollars in your pocket, and then people are very happy. And when I got together with Lee Majors in Houston, he said he does Comic-Con, and people, they line up to take photos with Lee Majors.
It's insane. Some of them. We have a friend, actually, my wife Pam went to school with Michael Rooker, who.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So apparently, Michael does very well. Michael does very well at the conventions. I mean, he's been in, Guardians of the Galaxy and, Walking Dead, and then all his other movies.
He was in Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, right?
Yeah, we were at a restaurant one time, and we had gone out because, hey, Rooker's in town, and we went to a restaurant with him and some of Pam's friends from school, and Michael Rooker was at the table, and he went up to go to the bathroom, but before he did, he came up behind me, put me in a Henry of the Portrait of the Serial Killer headlock, and said, "Anybody see Henry?" And then I had to go to the bathroom. It's like someone said, I saw that movie when he did that. I totally freaked out. I thought you were a goner. But like right at the table, he did it. So he had a great sense of humor.
And how long have you known him?
Well, Pam has known him since college. So, we'll hear stories about them. And occasionally he would be in town and we would see him. Not in a while. but we were able to get an autograph for my youngest son, Jack, who was a theater major at the time and a huge Michael Rooker fan, Walking Dead fan. We got an autograph picture from Michael, which he didn't charge us for. But apparently that's antithetical because he does very well at the conventions.
Yeah, and you think to yourself, like when I was thinking, oh, Lee Majors, you do Comic-Con? Isn't that a huge pain? And he's like, it's great money. Like Lee Majors, like you think, I mean, this guy's like, he's Lee Majors, you know,
he's the $6 million man.
Yeah, exactly.
But it is amazing. And, you know, you can go to any of them and, you know, you could be a video game actor or voice actor of note. And you could be doing, you know, I have a friend who said he was doing 10 or 15 different well-known video game or animation characters. And he was at New York Comic-Con. I visited him. We had drinks and everything. But I said, how's it going? He goes, it's fine. He goes, I'm doing okay. He said, but the guy next to me did a version of Spider-Man 10 years ago, and his line is out the door. He goes, but no one's talking to me. So I felt bad for him. So it really depends on
what. Like a Spider-Man game?
It was one of the cartoons. Yeah. One of the versions of the cartoons. And he had done, or it could have been a game. I don't know. But he did it 10 years ago. So I think in that respect, it's hit and miss based on what's hot. And I did the show Arcane, which has been enormously popular, won an Emmy. And I think that kind of, you know, helps like kind of raise your profile a little bit. But the guy that got me for the show that's going to be in Bloomington in, I guess, September. That's how far in advance they plan them. He said, oh, you have to do something from BioShock. You got to bring your BioShock pictures because I did a character called Jeremiah Fink.
And that's a game.
Yeah. It's a video game, BioShock Infinite. In the BioShock series, I think there were 3 of them. BioShock, BioShock 2, BioShock Infinite. But yeah, he goes, oh, you got to do, and if you could do a promo for us as Jeremiah Fink, I'm like, absolutely. So it remains to be seen how well I'll do, but it's kind of a new thing. I'm really excited about it. But yeah, you can find me on Streamily, and then you can get your prints that way.
Unbelievable. So
yeah, it's wild. Total wild.
The theme of today, you know, Dion Baia and I did a podcast recently that was 3 essential classic films because Dion has a great library in his head of classic films. He's a great appreciator of old cinema. You are as well. But also because of the comedy angle, because you are a comedian and a comedy writer, I thought we would do 3 essential comedies and in the classic variety. I mean, if you wanted to pick, you know, something, a modern comedy, you could, but I always assume people are going to pick, if it's essential, you know, that you're going to go back through the canon, through the classics.
Oh yeah, you have to. I mean, I originally, you know, at school was a film major. And did theater, but
at Fordham.
At Fordham,
yeah,
Fordham University in the Bronx. And but yeah, when you study film, you study all of, you know, the whole over of, like, you know, the American cinema and some foreign stuff too. But you find yourself gravitating, at least I did, to those screwball comedies and you know, stuff that was in like the studio era, which I always had an affinity for. Mm-hmm. But I really think that, you know, those old Howard Hawks, George Cukor, the original screwball comedies are among my favorites of the quote classics.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna, when we get to ours, if I say one and you were say, I was gonna say that one, then just, you know, pick another one.
I will,
because we're each gonna do 3.
Oh, right? I've got a whole quiver full of some cinematic arrows.
I know.
You know what I mean? So,
you know, it was funny. Last night I was on, because I watched Turner Classic Movies. Is it on now? No, I put on Fox because the 5 was on.
Yeah. So there's a TV in the background here. But it's that big a studio.
But sometimes I like to, I watch Turner Classic Movies on silent. If I'm podcasting or whatever, I just put on TCM and I put it on silent. And and then when the podcast is over, I turn on the button and I get stuck watching movies. So I got stuck on The Godfather last night on TCM, and then after The Godfather was The Freshman.
Oh, see, now this is something we should talk about, because I have the double feature theory, and that will be one of them.
Yeah,
it would be watch The Godfather, then watch The Freshman.
Yeah.
The other 2 are watch Failsafe, right?
Yeah,
and then watch Dr. Strangelove.
Oh, yeah.
Watch The Caine Mutiny, and then watch Mr. Roberts. You so it's like you have like the heavy drama of these, you know, iconic.
Yeah,
you know, movies, whatever the genre is, and then there's the parody of it, You know, and I suppose you could take that into the Mel Brooks thing. You know, watch a silent movie and watch silent movie.
Yeah.
You know, watch The Searchers or a famous Western, watch Blazing Saddles. That was his thing. In fact, I was in a film class and that was going to be my thesis. And I said, my thesis is that Mel Brooks has created the genre of the parody film of you know, great cinema.
Yeah.
And the guy turned me down flat.
Oh,
and it was a film comedy class. I'm like, this is a great idea. He's like, no, you're going to do. That's not going to be a thesis. It's like, it's my thesis. I have to prove it. It's like, you know, do you know anything about education? He didn't like that either. But.
The reason when you said you went to film school, it made me think of The Freshman from last night, because he's at NYU Film School and his professor is Paul Benedict. You know?
Yes.
Paul Benedict, who everyone knows him from The Jeffersons. He played who's that guy? His neighbor from The Jeffersons.
The lantern jawed fellow who talked like this.
Yes.
I must love him. It's like, what is with that guy?
And he would make him walk
Jefferson.
on his back. Yeah.
He sounded like Marvin Martian from the Warner Brothers.
Was it Mr. Carlin?
No, Mr. Carlin was Bob Newhart's show. He was the guy that kept talking about, you know. And
you're right.
You know my tube?
Yeah.
Can you see I have a tube?
Yeah. Oh, he was great.
All right, Mr. Carlin.
So but he was his professor, and he was you know, constantly shooting him down, and you know, he couldn't keep up with his homework. But it was great because I had just finished with The Godfather, and it's so serious and everything. And then you're watching The Freshman, which I think is a great comedy. Andrew, I forget the name of the guy who directed it. Andrew Bergman.
Yes.
He wrote The In-Laws, and he co-wrote the screenplay with Mel Brooks for Blazing Saddles.
Yeah, it is funny when that, you know, that kind of like it happens. Like the thing about The Freshman is it's Marlon Brando parodying himself as the Godfather. Yeah, you know, and you really don't have to say anything. He just has to walk in. Yeah, you know,
it's
with
so
the actual Mona Lisa.
I didn't finish the movie because it was late, and I was like, oh, I'm not going to get stuck watching this movie and then go to bed at like 1 a.m. So I went to bed. But the first half hour I watched, and it's so good. And Matthew Broderick is so excellent. He's so funny. He is really a funny guy. He was excellent in this movie.
He's so understated. And, you know, one of my favorite films is On the 20th Century, which is, it became a musical with like, you know, it was probably in the, I guess, early 80s, but like a Broadway show. But the movie is just balls out funny. And it's
On the
20th Century. And John Barrymore is playing this producer / actor, and he is completely parodying, you know, the John Barrymore, the great profile. Yeah, you know, probably drinking a little bit too much. Very, very funny movie.
Is that one of your three? I know.
No, it's not.
The Freshman. I didn't use up any of my three yet.
That's not one of my three. But this is my point. You mentioned before. It's like, you got three. I'm like, I was a film major. I got more than three. Yeah, you know, it's like give me a category or a year. You know, give me 1939. I'll give you three incredible movies from.
Okay, so Essential 3. I'm going to go with this one, and it's an easy pick, and no question about it. Duck Soup. Duck Soup.
All right, so here's the thing about the Marx Brothers, because that was on my list. In fact, but it wasn't specifically Duck Soup. It's any Marx Brothers movie. Yeah. In other words, put your videotape in, fast forward, or your DVD, or in your streaming. Just fast forward 20 minutes and watch a scene. Yeah, you know, watch the stateroom scene from Night at the Opera. You know, I think it's Horse Feathers, where you know, where you know, Harpo is in the sanitation wagon and he's playing football and knocking down. It's like it's a series of scenes, but this is the brilliance of the Marx Brothers. They had all these bits worked out. So they're just like, it's like they didn't have to write the movie. It's just like, it's hung by a thread, you know, on the skeleton of a plot. And all the meat is all the great Marx Brothers bits. Yeah.
That's why probably the earlier ones are, and I do love the late ones too. There's one called The Big Store that I love, where they're in a store and just making mayhem. But the early ones are probably better and more beloved because the early ones, they really were just doing the vaudeville shows that they did. And then in the later ones, they had to kind of come up with new scripts and new ideas and stuff like that. But
and of course, and then just Margaret Dumont comes in. Well, Captain Spaulding.
Yes. Oh yeah, so good.
Standing close, right behind you.
So why did I pick Duck Soup? Do you think that would be the premier #1 recommendation? Because if the idea when we're doing the essential list is for people who don't know much about old cinema or classics or anything, and so in my last one, I said, okay, we're going to go with ones that are basically like essential. So the essential, if you only have one, okay, because you're going to die of cancer. So what are you going to do? You're going to watch Duck Soup?
That doesn't have to come true. Right?
Okay, yeah, forget the die, because it's not about the die. What it is you want to give them one essential one that's going to make them watch all the rest
in other words, all the celluloid's going to be destroyed. What would you save? You got to rush into the AFI film vault and save 3 movies, but in terms of the Marx Brothers one, Duck Soup is way up there because it's that's the war one, right?
Yeah, it's like Fredonia.
Yeah. So that is a good one. But then it's like, can I keep the stateroom scene?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can I keep that?
Yeah.
So it's but that is a good one. It's one of the there's so much about all of them that are like, well, you got to see this. You have to see this scene.
Yeah.
But you could pick that one and no one would be like, what the hell did you pick that one for?
Yeah. What's the one where you said Horse Feathers, is it? And then there's
a Day at the Races, Night at the Opera.
Day at the Races, where
Horse Feathers, Duck Soup.
And Horse Feathers and Day at the Races, I think I mixed up, because doesn't Horse Feathers involve a horse race?
I think so, and it's a Day at the Races. This is what I mean.
Yeah.
I don't think they even knew.
Yeah, but there's a thing
for
where
all we know, they could have shot them all together in in 3 months and be like, it's a mosaic. It doesn't matter where you look.
The bus station, and he's selling tickets, and they go through this whole routine that's so funny, where he sells them a ticket and then he sells it back to him or something. I can't remember what it is, but there's a great scene that obviously was one of their vaudeville routines because it was so well oiled. But okay, so Duck Soup, Marx Brothers, and then you can do a Marx Brothers if you want, but that
my answer is clear. It's like you can't go wrong.
Yeah,
it's like I'd like a slice of pizza in New York City. It's like, well, you have to go here. It's like I'll go to Original Ray's or Barry Ray's or Ray's Barry. It's like I don't care. So I don't think you're going to go really wrong with a Marx Brothers movie. So I defer to Duck Soup. I'll say it's one of mine, but I'll throw Night at the Opera out too. Just because.
Yeah,
but
that's probably a later one, isn't it? Night at the Opera.
I don't know the year on that.
Let's see. We could have so much information at our fingertips. I have a computer here, but
ostensibly that's why I'm here. I should have more information. I should have my specifics down on the Marx Brothers dates, but I don't.
So that's one of yours, A Night at the Opera.
Okay.
It's not one of your 3. Give me your #1. Because I did Duck Soup. Now we're going to go to your #1.
Okay. Well, my #1,
which is doesn't have to be #1. It's one of the 3. I'm not saying the more you got to start with the most
one
important.
that I know that I've spoken about before. It's a Danny Kaye movie called The Court Jester.
Oh yeah.
So 1956, Danny Kaye plays kind of like a traveling troubadour entertainer.
Yeah.
With a little wagon. However, the king is evil in the kingdom that he enters, and they have hired an assassin. The king isn't evil. The one of the seconds, like the cardinal, whatever the heck he is.
Yeah.
Played by Basil Rathbone.
Of course, I was gonna say
right. Of course. Oh yeah. Okay. So anyway, he wants to kill probably the king or something and marry his daughter. Who cares? So he hires an assassin who is played by Danny Kaye. So Danny Kaye looks exactly like the assassin. Or something like that. But anyway, it's mistaken identity, typical Danny Kaye thing. So they believe him to be whatever the guy's name is, like the Black Fox or the Silver Fox or something. And he goes in between being this assassin and being crazy Danny Kaye in, this comedy of, not even a comedy of errors. It just seems everything goes wrong, everything goes right. And they've got to save this little baby, and it's just Danny Kaye going in between 2 completely different characters. A suave, debonair, swashbuckling assassin, and crazy madcap Danny Kaye.
Yeah.
Now, thing I like about it is that, of course, Basil Rathbone is in it. There is some swordplay. You get to see Danny Kaye fight one of the greatest swordsmen in Hollywood, right? The fun way, where he's like screaming, and then he switches to be like an expert swordsman. So just incredible things like that. Great stunts. The romantic lead, the female, is Angela Lansbury. And don't think of her, do not think of her as, in Cabot's Cove, what's the woman's name? Jessica Fletcher?
Jessica Fletcher.
No. This is her, and she's probably, the light side of 26.
Yeah.
And just gorgeous.
Yeah.
You don't even think of it.
Hey, listen, Jessica Fletcher wasn't half bad either.
No, she wasn't. If you're into that kind of thing, Tom. I'm not, but
how about
give me a minute.
Okay, how about in what's the Manchurian Candidate?
Yes. Well, there she is again, a little bit older.
Yeah.
A little bit more seasoned.
More matronly, but still attractive.
Yes. But anyway, watch her in The Court Jester, and that's the one with the famous scene, and that is the pellet with the poison, the vessel with the pestle, the flagon with the dragon holds brew that is true. That it's like I think Abbott and Costello would have been like, boy, we should have done that. Yeah. We did Who's On First, but we should have done the pellet with the poison, the vessel with the pestle, the chalice from Pal's broke.
And it's great that Danny Kaye is on our list because he could be overlooked. I mean, he was kind of everywhere. Like he was in White Christmas, right? White Christmas.
I think it was White Christmas, yeah. And he was in a great movie called The Five Pennies.
Walter Mitty?
He was in Walter Mitty.
But he was probably a like Jim Carrey of his day. Like he made hit after hit after hit.
Oh, listen, nothing against Jim Carrey, but he had nothing on Danny Kaye.
Yeah,
because Danny Kaye was like this classic song and dance man. Yeah. But Hans Christian Andersen, So in a way, it's like. It's like a vehicle movie. It's like they write the movie and be like, we're going to put Danny Kaye in it.
Yeah.
Much like Jim Carrey. I don't care what the plot is. You put Jim Carrey. You put Robin Williams in.
Yeah.
It's like, here's the plot. It's playing like he wants to get together with his kids again because he's a divorced dad. And he plays a female housekeeper, Mrs. Doubtfire. And I was like, that sounds pretty good. It's like, well, we got Robin Williams. So like, oh, that's going to be it.
Exactly.
And, Dustin Hoffman, Tootsie, which is one of my modern favorites. So that was the list.
Is that in? That's not one of your three, though.
No. Well, it would be if you want to go in the past. I do have modern favorites.
You know what? That would have been. It was not on my list, but it's worthy of the list because Tootsie's one of the all-time great movies, and it's totally not overrated at all. It's so excellent. But I'm going to go to number 2 now. Number 2, is The Philadelphia Story.
Well, that's great.
Story. Yeah,
George Cukor.
Yeah.
But that's, again, so you're getting into the screwball comedy thing. And, the stars alone. I'm sorry, do we have Jimmy Stewart and Cary Grant in the same movie? Right?
Yeah. And Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, and Katharine Hepburn. So you get that.
So you got that. Okay. So that's just a classic thing. Originally a stage play. And then becomes this, iconic screwball movie.
Was it the stage play? Was it Moss Hart or Philip Barry? I don't know. Do you know?
I thought it was Moss Hart.
I thought it was Moss Hart.
I don't know.
But then I was about to say Moss Hart, and I'm like, am I wrong? Maybe I'll look that one up. We'll see.
Well, the thing about that, so again, classic, but I put it in the same category of those screwball comedies because they became like my favorite type for those older, the old black and white ones in the 30s and 40s. So yes, Philadelphia Story, Bringing Up Baby, His Girl Friday. So you're talking about those movies. Holiday.
Holiday would have been. I was thinking, should I say Holiday? Because it's Cary Grant, it's Katharine Hepburn, and it's George Cukor, I think, right?
Holiday's George Cukor.
Yeah. And my kids loved Holiday. They loved it, but they didn't love Philadelphia Story.
You know why? I think because Holiday is less romantic and it's more, I don't know if you can call it implosive, but the plot basically is a guy, Cary Grant, basically decides that why do we wait until we're 65 to retire and, and live the good life? I'm going to do it right now.
Yeah.
You know, so and
like he made $1 million. He made his first $1 million, and now the woman he's going to marry, her family wants him to go into the banking business with them, and he's going to be a real success. It's like, well, I'm going to go around the world. I want to see.
Well, do it now while I'm young, you know. So, and Katharine Hepburn, of course, is torn.
Yes.
Or is she? And then there's some other sap that they want her to marry because he's going to toe the family party line. But that was just a good one.
Yeah.
And that's something that's one of those feel good movies. It's funny on its own, but it's like, it's still a really good message.
It is good. So, so would you say, should I have picked Holiday instead of Philadelphia Story?
That's really good. I don't want to get into fisticuffs with you.
Yeah.
But in terms of a comedy, yeah. I mean, I think Holiday does it for me more than Philadelphia Story, but there's so much in Philadelphia Story. So you're getting into that meld of how can you not remember this scene? How can you not remember that? I mean, one of my favorites is Bringing Up Baby. That would be my favorite from that era if I had to pick.
Mm-hmm.
That's the film I would rescue from the vault.
Cary Grant, Katharine Hepburn.
Yeah, Charlie Ruggles. He's a paleontologist, and she's the sassy girl that is going to steal his heart.
I wonder.
And then just add a leopard who is Baby. Baby is as Cary
There's
Grant
a leopard
says,
in it. It's amazing.
Baby's a leopard.
And there's a leopard in the movie, and he's running around, and it's. Totally
and I believe Edward Everett Horton is in that.
Oh yeah.
Who did the voice of he was the narrator in all the Rocky and Bullwinkle things.
That's right.
And so Rocky and Bullwinkle, I love it.
But he was also in Holiday. He and his wife are in Holiday. They're friends of Cary Grant. And then when he finally takes Katharine Hepburn away from the house, they go on the ship and they sail for Europe.
Yes.
And it's with his friends, Edward Everett Horton, and the woman who was,
I don't know her name.
she was in tons of Fred and Ginger movies.
Yeah, don't know who she is. But I, even thinking about this, I'm like, wait a minute, was Edward Everett Horton Bringing Up Baby? I really have to think about it. But you're in the whole studio system where it's like, we need some, Howard Hawks would have a stable of people. Everybody wanted Cary Grant. Yeah. Because in the 4 movies we mentioned, he's in each of them. So they are as part of the Cary Grant oeuvre. But I would, Bringing Up Baby was always my favorite. Close second to that would be, if we're doing 2A, would be His Girl Friday, which is Howard Hawks with Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant.
Yes, and Ralph Bellamy is the
Ralph Bellamy.
Ralph Bellamy is the one she's going to marry.
No. Well, they're divorced. That's the thing about it. It's kind of like, whoa, what's going on here?
Well, yeah, it's interesting because it's the same in they're divorced and he wins her back again. Right. Same as Philadelphia Story. C.K. Dexter Haven was married to Katharine Hepburn.
It's all
and then he.
It's like Bewitched. It's like the Munsters and the Addams Family. Yeah. Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. It's like wait a minute. Who came up with this first? And I guess it's a successful enough formula that we just do that again. Yeah. Give me the script. Let me juggle some pages around.
But yeah, Rosalind Russell,
in a stateroom scene,
and she's great in that as the tough,
Oh, she's just like, and then you see her with Ralph Bellamy, and then Cary Grant comes in, and he doesn't care anymore. They're divorced, but he obviously still loves her, and you think to yourself, she should be with him. From the first 5 minutes together, the fun trivia about that movie is that Howard Hawks was going over the dialogue. And it goes at a breakneck clip. And when they were rehearsing, he kept saying faster, faster, faster. And if you watch the movie, you can see that's why it works. Yeah. It is nonstop. And when those two banter, and then suddenly Ralph Bellamy comes in and he's just not there. Yeah. It's like, can we see more of them, please? Yeah. So that's definitely.
So your number 2, we've only got one out of you so far, one real one, right?
The Court Jester, yeah.
The Court Jester. Okay, what's your second one?
The second one, are we going older?
No, we don't have to. It could be.
Okay,
come out in any order.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned Tootsie, but there's a movie that I saw, and it was on TV, and I don't know if it was ever in the theaters. It's called Start the Revolution Without Me, and it's Donald Sutherland and Gene Wilder as the Corsican brothers.
Holy cow! I'm so excited because I've never even.
Well, hey, listen, if again, I pulled this out of the fire probably before Philadelphia Story, but it is just ridiculously funny, and it's it parodies the era, the historical film. Orson Welles is the narrator, and it starts off it'd be like France, 1789, and then the next scene later that evening, 1789, and it's like so exciting. Like if the narration is making me laugh, and it's totally crazy. Directed by Bud Yorkin, who was one of those 70s TV Norman Lear, Mary Tyler Moore kind of guys.
So this is a 70s movie?
1970 is when it happened.
1970. And give me the title again.
Start the Revolution Without Me.
Revolution Without Me. I feel like now, it's a familiar title.
Okay, now the thing I grappled with this because it's like, I would say it because it's kind of thing that nobody knows about, and it's more important that they know that than like, oh, you're going to say Casablanca. Everybody says that.
Yeah.
But that was in tandem with Arthur, okay, which is definitely in the theaters because we're doing like TV movies. I don't know, but Arthur would be, one of my hands down absolute favorites.
I saw it and I think a lot of the humor went over my head, like the Dudley Moore stuff in the 70s. I went to see it, in the movie theater, but I was too much of a juvenile to appreciate that kind of humor. It had really,
you're still kind of a juvenile.
Yeah, I know, but it was like I mean, I understood the drunk jokes, but
you wonder if you could get like who would be upset about that now. But I mean, just like the worst kind of drunk.
Yeah. Yeah. But even the movies like
but he's a happy drunk. That's the thing.
He's a happy drunk. But he's also a bit of a Lothario, right?
Because he's rich and he can pay for whatever he wants.
And
damn cute. He's Dudley Moore.
Yes. But there was like Blake Edwards movies, like the Pink Panther and 10. These were all the rage in the 70s, and I would go to see them. Yeah. But they always made me a little uncomfortable because they were just too, I mean, by today's standards, they weren't really that dirty. They were kind of like cute in their, ribaldry, their, but
the ribaldry.
Yes. But I just was always, I just thought, I don't think I should be watching this. That's what I thought as the teenager.
Well, yeah, because they're rated PG, but I think there was so little of that in Arthur. I mean, there's a scene. You're a hooker. I just thought I was doing great with you.
So I'm mixing. I'm blending Dudley Moore probably with a bunch of other racier movies.
Right, but even in 10,
Yeah.
But that's kind of a different kind of movie, which I thought was funny. And there's a scene in 10 where Dudley Moore goes to visit the priest to talk about how he's in love with this girl.
Yeah.
Bo Derek. Wonder why. But she's like the ultimate fantasy. It's all visual. But he does go to talk to the priest, and there's a scene where basically the dog comes in and the dog farts, and he blames it on the woman. This decrepit woman is bringing them tea. And it's just one of those scenes you watch over and over again. It's standalone. I'll just set up and say, this guy's going to talk to the priest about something. You don't even know about what. It's all unfolds, and it's probably like a 5-minute scene, and you just watch it over and over again. So perfect example of like a stateroom scene kind of thing where it's like it's a standalone scene in a great movie, and it was really a well-known movie and a huge hit because it's Bo Derek in a bathing suit and Dudley Moore. But Arthur's the one, and it's Liza Minnelli as
that's right,
Arthur, and she's just a girl from Queens who runs into a millionaire at a department store, and he falls in love with her. And his lieutenant or his man is John Gielgud Hobson.
Oh, right. And Gielgud's hilarious in this, right?
I think he won the Oscar, I think.
For this. Yeah.
But he's unbelievably good at it. And it's like this love-hate relationship they have, but it's mostly love. And he's basically like been parenting Arthur, the drunk, until Arthur meets Linda and just falls in love with her.
Mm-hmm.
And he's everything that he should not be involved with as the rich kid.
Yeah.
In fact, he's going to be cut off from the fortune, much like Cary Grant, if you dare not you know,
Yeah.
marry this girl, Jill Eikenberry, who's just a wet blanket. And, you know, so the romance ensues, and you don't know what's going to happen because he's going to lose his fortune.
Yep.
But anyway, so many great moments in that movie. And really, you know, even modern era, past era, definitely one of my top 10 movies ever.
Oh, that's great. That's great. It was an unexpected one. And that's 2, right? You still have one more left. But
it's almost not fair. We like need chapter 2 of this because there's so many. So,
well, I don't want to get you don't do number 3 yet. I want to take between 2 and 3 because we each have one movie left. I thought I would go to because, you know, we're talking about your life in video games and you do voiceovers, and you also there's something that we've both done a bit of, and that's looping. And I thought that'd be a fun subject because people don't know a lot about it, and when they hear about it, they're like, "Wow, I didn't know they like that." It's part of the movie business that nobody really thinks about, but it's in every movie. Every
absolutely. I mean, people say ADR, which is additional dialogue replacement. So an example I'll give, there's a difference between looping and ADR. And, you know, they're basically, you do them kind of at the same time. Looping is basically, you're in a movie, you say something like, you know, I'm tired of this. I just want to get out of here and start a new life. They do the production and you're there and someone says, he kind of swallowed, I start a new life. Bill, could you, Tom Shalhoub, and do his lip sync and get that line right so we don't have to call Tom back in?
Yeah.
So that's what looping is.
Well, so that is I thought that was ADR.
No, see, ADR now.
Yeah.
Now it's a scene with me, you in a restaurant, and you're about to fire me.
Yeah.
And there's 7 or 8 tables.
Okay. Yeah. So I flipped them. them.
And
so yeah, they have to do the scene.
Right. So the scene is done. But what people don't know is that when you're watching that scene with the crowded restaurant, the only people speaking audibly are the 2 leads. So the people that are in the scene.
Yeah.
The 3 people at the table or something. Or maybe the waiter, if the waiter's got more than one line. In the background, everybody else is doing this.
Yeah.
They can't do anything. So at ADR, you'll be watching it, your big screen in the room, and someone will say, all right, Bill, you're going to be the dad at the table with his son.
Right.
Marcella, you're going to be the lady with her mom having lunch, you know, and then you do it. And you try and watch what they're saying if their face is facing the camera, and you're covering the dialogue. So you're making it up. You're eventually just having this phony conversation that is not stepping on anything. It can't poke out. And the sound editor will be like, okay, that was, he'd say like a little pokey. I heard that. We want to feel it. But, you know, you're having a real conversation. Yeah. So that's the ADR.
And going for many minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes there's a scene.
Really long.
Give us a scene that you did ADR for that people might know, like a scene in a movie that, for instance, I did in Fargo. There's that scene where Marge is having dinner or having a cup of coffee or something with this Asian guy. Do you remember him? And he's Marge, so, yes. And it's this Asian guy, and he's kind of has a crush on her. Oh, Marge, you know, and she's like, and then she realizes she's kind of on a date and she didn't know it. So in that scene, I'm in the background. There's a bartender and there's a person. So me and somebody were doing that scene in the background of that famous scene. So when people want to talk about looping, I say, "Oh, you remember that scene? That's me."
That was me.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I was telling you before. I'll be watching a movie if we're in the theater watching it, and I'll be sitting next to my wife, and then a scene will come through, and there'll be a guy calling out for a cab or something.
Yeah.
Taxi, you know. Which people don't really do that much anymore because of Uber. But if that happens, it'll happen, and I'll be like nudging her, like,
yeah,
and she's like, "Is that you?"
Yeah.
But you know, you can't say it too loud because people are like, "Buddy, knock it off." It's like, knock it off. That was my line you stepped on.
Yeah.
You know. But yeah, we did that. But I worked on Naiad, which is the Annette Bening movie, the swimmer movie about Diana Naiad. So I worked on that. And there was a scene where she's having a birthday party.
Yeah.
And, you know, she didn't want to have the birthday. I think it was her 50th or 60th birthday party. and we were doing the background for that. So it's her and Jodie Foster and whoever else was in it, and we had to be like, the party goers of a certain age,
right?
So we did that. So if you saw Naiad, you heard me. Now I did actually some looping for Naiad because Diana Naiad was on the Johnny Carson show. Whatever year it was, 1988. Well, I don't know what year it was, but
the swimmer.
Yeah. So he had to introduce her. Johnny Carson had to introduce her, but the TV feed, the taping they had, they couldn't get him saying it right. So I had to do, ladies and gentlemen, Diana Naiad.
Yeah.
So I had to do that. So they had said to me before, they said, "Can you do Carson?" I was like, "Oh yeah. And they were like, "Send me some stuff of you doing Carson." So I had to do like some Carson jokes, his typical things like, "Boy, it was windy out there on the 405 last night. How windy was it?"
Yeah.
"It was so windy that a Volkswagen passed me overhead." so anyway, so it's like, okay, great. And then I wound up just having to say, "Ladies and gentlemen, Diana Naiad,"
Yeah.
But so that was looping in, basically the studio, but we're doing with, 8 or 10 actors in the room doing the craft scenes, the guys on the boat, the people who are cheering her on as she's, approaching the coastline of Mexico.
Yeah. So sometimes you crowd around the mic and it's a bunch of you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or else they'll do it. Or maybe it's a street scene. I'm like, okay, guys, busy street scene. And you're in this big room and they want to get the stereo effect. So you're walking past the microphone and you're going back, and then they'll be, okay, let's do call outs. So it's 1:00 in the morning in New York City street. It's kind of busy Saturday night, Bobby, throw down my keys. Hey, where you been?
Yeah.
So you're doing all that stuff. Get the hell off of my car, So it depends on the movie. They don't want it to stick out too much. And then it'll be like, all right, let's do some wild laughs. Just people laughing. Ha, 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 and they go down the line. So it's layer upon layer upon layer of background stuff that the sound editors bring down to make it sound like you are right there.
Yeah.
And people win awards for that kind of stuff. But you're in the room watching scenes over and over again, covering just the back, replacing additional dialogue, adding additional dialogue.
We were looking before we started for some of the scenes that you did. I found we couldn't find any of yours immediately on YouTube.
Because there's so many.
There's so many. I mean,
it's like a needle in a haystack.
You've done way more looping than me, but I happened to find a scene here that I did, which for some reason with the Coen brothers, I did a couple of the Coen brothers, and I got into this thing of like they would have me doing death scenes. In Fargo, at the very beginning, they shoot the cop. I mean, a cop gets shot right in the head, and he stops it, or they stop the car and they shoot the cop. And that's me playing the cop getting shot because they didn't have any recording of him. It was totally silent because they were out in the snow and it was really cold, and they just didn't have any sound at all. So they had to put the fake sound of snow and the wind in the background, and then the cop dying. So that's me dying. And then in the next movie that I did with them, which was the man who wasn't there, with Billy Bob Thornton, it was the James Gandolfini. A famous scene where he gets killed. So we'll take a look at the scene. I can show you. And it to me, it's kind of obvious that it's me. You can hear.
Well, yeah, to you.
I know. You can hear where it goes from Gandolfini to my voice because he gets stabbed. And then it was Ethan Coen was the one who was at the thing. And he said, I need you to be drowning on your own blood. So for people, if you're grossed out by, someone drowning on their own blood, then you're not going to want to see this. But that's what
and for the rest of you weirdos who like that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's like, it is. It's,
But to me, it's like, oh, I would love to do that. That's like a video game thing. Now he's drowning.
Gotta make sure we hear the sound of that.
It's a gurgle.
He just stabbed him. No, that's me. So now you're going to hear him kind of
definitely your gurgle
drowning on his blood here. Yeah. So
There
that's
you
it.
go.
That's
You know, it's I think I told you before, one of the first like big movies I worked on in ADR was Noah with Russell Crowe. It was, Darren Aronofsky, an epic. But they shot it, and a lot of action in that movie. The arc is big. You know what I mean? It's a big boat. And they needed me to cover Russell Crowe, some of his lines.
Yeah.
Just some of like the Russell Crowe lines.
Yeah.
But then a lot of it was like, okay, Noah thinks there's a problem with the giraffes on the third level, and he has to go up the ladder. And it's like, all right, so we need him like climbing.
Yeah.
Russell Crowe climbing and breathing heavy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, now he comes to landing and he turns a corner. So they call those efforts. So that was really fun. And then occasionally there were lines. It's like, Billy, we can't hear this freaking line. So I'm like, I'm actually doing Russell Crowe.
Yeah.
So that was good. But I'd have to watch the whole movie to say, yeah, that's me.
Yeah, it might come back to you.
If they do it, it's they do it well. I can't attest to like what happened with Gandolfini. If you don't think it was good, I thought it was good. But
it's just the you do it, and then you're kind of like, wait, was that
Yeah, and then they'll be like, oh, it's great.
Yeah.
But they can slide it and fix it a little bit. But I did Hail Caesar, which was a Coen Brothers movie with George Clooney, and one of the Coen brothers. And pissed off my film friends, the guys I went to school with for, at Fordham, who were like, which guy was it? Was it Ethan or was it Joel? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. But the scene was, there was a photographer who was taking a picture of a starlet, but he was a sleazy photographer. Mm-hmm. And then, the cop comes in. Was it, I don't know who the cop was. I want to say James Brolin, or Josh Brolin. I'm not sure who it was. But so the photographer gets manhandled by the cop because he's a bastard shooting this starlet. So the Coen brother, don't know who it was, said, yeah, we don't like the photographer's voice. So I had to redo all of he probably had 2 or 3 lines, that's right, baby, closer, but they didn't like him. That's it. Yep. Now take your top off.
And are you seeing him, or is it him off?
Oh, you would see him. So I had to like match his lip. They call it the lip flaps. So you had to watch his mouth so you could say the line, to tell you what the line is. So I'm doing it. And he goes, and now the detective comes in and pushes you. And I was like, okay. And I was like, ah. And he's like, okay, try it again. He's really pushing you hard. Ah. And, and you're trying to make it sound like the guy, and he falls. And then the Coen brother says, would you mind if I pushed you? And I was like, oh, please do, because I'm going to tell my film friends about this. So he did it. He goes, all right, so you stay the line, and I'm going to come at you. I'm going to push you, and you yell. So we did it like 4 or 5 times. I'm like, yes, mistress, more, please. So it's like, how was the Coen brothers? Like, oh, they were very handsy. But
it was probably Ethan. Joel is taller and has dark hair. And Ethan has lighter hair, maybe your color, or even more blonde.
Maybe. But and also one of them would be more likely the guy that was there, but I didn't know which was which. It could have been either of them. But yeah, it was really funny. But that's the kind of thing where it's like a combination of Foley, which would be all the sound effects like crunching snow, or,
right.
You're not even allowed to snap your fingers because that's considered Foley. Whole different rate.
Oh.
So,
no sound effects, but
sound effects,
but effort, you call it?
Yeah, effort. But in this case, he really wanted to push me because he wanted it to sound like the guy's really being pushed. Yeah. So that was totally fun.
It's funny because we were talking about Casino. Casino was on TV before you got here, and all the swearing in Casino is overdubbed on AMC, which I was surprised. I thought AMC played the movies as they were, but. So there's so much swearing in Casino, and it seems so silly when he's saying, you stinking jerk,
it's bad sometimes.
Yeah. But in Fargo, we were doing it, and Ethan Coen was there. And there's a scene in Fargo, which you might remember, where they, the bad guys, it's, that blonde haired guy who's just really evil. And then Steve Buscemi are in an apartment.
Steve Buscemi.
And they're making noise, and then the neighbor comes and knocks on the door, and he's like, and he's just swearing and pounding on the door, like, shut up in there. And then the guy comes out and beats him up in the hallway, like he pounds on him. And so that there's that scene. So we did it, and they had to do the PG version of it. And so Ethan Cohen was giving us words, and he's like, hey, fellas, calm down, pipe down, fellas, party responsibly. Like that was the line he wanted us to say, because that's one of his private jokes is when they do the Coen Brothers movies, they don't really care about the PG version of it.
Yeah, it's like, why would they go see the real thing?
Yeah. You know? So they purposefully put the stupidest swear replacements in there. So I just remember when he said, pipe down, party responsibly. That was like a weird.
Yeah, it's really funny because I was doing something today, and this is like home studio stuff, and it's a very funny show. I think it's going to be on Adult Swim, but it is, you know, the woman like loses. Well, I don't want to say what happens, but it's this side of foul.
Yeah.
But really, really funny and edgy, and the language is like, you know. But they were saying things like, I know it's scripted that Bill says shit here, but we can only have 3. We can only have 3 shit. We're not allowed 3 shits. I said, so you don't give 2 shits. You give 3. So that we have to cut that out so he can't say it. And we had to do a replacement for that. But they wanted one of the line. He used the F word, and I said, well, how about we do? You know, I don't frickin' care.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So
good word, Bill.
It's like oh God, that's why we're paying you. We're paying you. You were able to replace that but it's like there is always the TV version, and you do a movie, and then someone says, guys, got to do the TV stuff, and they hand you like a whole sheet of things in the ADR where you can't do, you know, the curse words.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, this is an angry guy saying darn it.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who does that.
It's so funny.
Not even Mormons.
Okay, so I'm going to play this scene. We didn't find any looping, but I did find something. And why don't I play it first, and then you can tell me about it. This is
hear it.
Well, I'll tell you after the.
Okay.
This is Geronimo Stilton.
And build 10 snow mice if you like. When they had left, I headed down the hall toward my office. I passed through the art department. Tyler True Mouse waved a paw at me. Tyler is my senior designer. Merry Christmas, Mr. Stilton, he squeaked. Then he added with a chuckle, aren't you hot? I shook my head no and stumbled right into Tyler-Rat's assistant. Merry Christmas, Mr. Stilton, squeaked Marangita Ginger Mouse.
Okay, so that's...
all right, so Geronimo Stilton, very famous, at least in Italy, like a newspaper mouse. He's the editor of the Roots Gazette, or whatever it is. But, you know, one thing leads to another, as most of the Silvermen know, and suddenly you're out, you know, in Arabia investigating who stole a pyramid. You know, but the thing about the series is it's for kids, and you would learn about, you know, world travels, learn about the world from world travel and mysteries. But the good thing about the story is, at least where I was concerned, it's like I got to do him. He narrates his own stories. That's Geronimo Stilton, kind of an erudite newspaper man who loves cheese. So there's that, but then he has his whole newspaper staff. He has his secretary, who's his sister, you know, and he's got a nephew travel with him. He's got a goofy cousin. But I got to do all of the voices because it's basically an audio book. So when we do an audio book, you do all of the characters. So if you're doing The Hunt for Red October, you're doing, you know, the regular, you know, evenly paced narrator. Then you're also doing, you know, the captain of the boat who happened to be Sean Connery. So
that's hard. So you got to do. Yeah, this is what I'm
in an audio book. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've never done an audio book like that, but I have heard them, and sometimes the readers are so good, you know, at doing all the characters and everything, and I'm always impressed by them. You know, I've never heard one of your books, but when you do it, I always wonder, do you do it straight off, or do they say, let's put you in character and do a bunch of these guys?
No, you read through.
You read through.
You know,
okay.
Because you've got a 300-page book. They can't be splitting it up like that. So I think the mark of a really good audiobook narrator is going from narrator to character. I did one of the books I did was remember the movie The Fighter with Mark Wahlberg?
Yeah.
So the original book by Mickey Ward, who's the boxer in the movie, I don't know the name of the title of the book, but I had to do that. The thing is, and you'll appreciate this because the narrator they wanted as a South Boston accent. So the guy talked the whole time like this.
Yeah.
You know, it's Mickey Ward, you know. So you had to do that. But then it's like, so Mickey Ward is narrating, but then he runs into his friends. You do his brother, Decky got to Decky, you know. But then you had to do like one of his, you know, the guy he's going to fight and their dialogue. So he's from New York.
Yep.
Mickey Ward is from Boston. So that was really good. But that was the kind of thing you go through the whole thing. And maybe at the end, the sound editor or the director would say, all right, let's cover that one section in chapter 2. You kind of trailed off a little bit, or he sounded too much like the restaurant owner.
Yeah.
And we wanted the mob guy. And you're like, oh, okay, let me do like a Philadelphia guy instead of a Chicago guy.
Yeah.
You know, so it's really involved. But it's certainly, there's less leeway on that because it can't be so obtrusive that you take people's mind off the narrative. So it has to be good, but not so, you know, overwhelmingly like, wow, it's a whole different guy, you know.
Yeah.
So that's one of the art of like the more, you know, sane narratives. But with Geronimo Stilton, it was like Geronimo Stilton sounded like this, and his sister sounded like this, you know, and then his cousin sounded like this. So
and you got to plow right through it.
And you had to plow right through it. And then it's like, and now there's a mummy that comes to life. Saeed, get out of the tomb of the, you know, you're doing all this stuff. And, you know, and the audio, the director loves it because he's like, oh, we never get to do this stuff.
Yeah.
But it's for kids. So it's a read along and everything's written, and, you know, the graphics and the actual book that they hold are, you know, the circular letters and spinning around and all different colors. And so you really brought it to life. But man, those were fun. I did a bunch of those.
And I think you said the original, at first it was...
this is actually funny. The original guy was Edward Herman.
Edward Herman.
So,
he's a fantastic...
Yeah.
I mean, he did voiceover for so many things, and also an actor.
He always played like FDR.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
And I did a good job playing FDR.
Yeah, wasn't he
you
in
know?
Annie?
Yeah, he was like, maybe he's one of the, not the original Warbucks. That was, can't think of his name, even though I know you played him on stage. But
Albert Finney did one. Albert Finney
yeah,
did it, yeah.
So, but Edward Herman was the original voice of these narrated books. And then they said, for some reason, I don't know, they said, oh, they want you to do this Geronimo Stilton thing. I'm like, absolutely. Look at the characters. So I had a great time doing it. And then I read comments after a couple of books came out. And they were like, please bring back Edward Herman. Please bring him back. And I'm like, well, let me listen to the rest of the book. And he wasn't doing the characters. He was just doing a little bit of it, like an audiobook, like an adult audiobook.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, mine are way more fun.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, you know, but he gave it up. So I was in a studio in Manhattan, and I'm walking in, and, you know, I'm sitting there, and in walks this tall guy, a little bit older guy. It's Edward Herman. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Edward Herman. So I went up to him. I said, Mr. Herman, hello, you know, and I said, I'm a big fan. I've seen so many. Oh, thank you. Very kind. You know, he's very subdued. And I said, another thing, I said, I'm now doing the Geronimo Stilton series. And he gets this look on his face like he didn't want to stop doing it. And he says, oh, is that you? And I was like, my wife
didn't give it up.
My wife,
you were thinking he gave it up, but they moved on because he's got his fees too high or something.
Yeah, or maybe his fee was too high. Or it's like Edward, you got to pick it up a little bit. Well, I don't think a mouse would say that. It's like mouses don't talk.
Oh yeah.
So don't split the hair. But it was kind of weird that my wife said to me, she says, you said that to him? I said, I don't know what to say. I want to be like, okay, can I have your autograph? I just said, oh, here's something we have in common.
Yeah.
I'm doing Geronimo Stilton. Oh, that's you. And I'm like, I think I've upset Edward Herman. He ain't coming to my next party. It's like, oh, you idiot. But it's like, but no, I was trying to, you know, find common ground with it, you know, one of the television and movie greats of that era.
I think he was in Chaplin, wasn't he? As like J. Paul Getty or something.
Yeah, he
when they
could
were
have
on the
been.
yacht?
It was just that kind of thing. It's just like we need a guy to play a rich, you know, very intelligent and well-off fellow. It's like, how about Edward Herman?
Yeah.
He can't. He's doing an audiobook for kids.
Exactly.
He's doing Geronimo Stilton.
Yeah.
Or, he couldn't get away. It's like, if you don't take the next FDR thing, Edward, you can't, you can do it, but you won't be doing any more Geronimo Stilton. They'll be like, oh, screw that. I want to do FDR again. And it's like, so whatever happened with Geronimo Stilton? Well, they got Bill Lobley to do it. Bastard. That bastard. So, that was kind of a funny thing. But yeah, so the audiobook thing is, that's all character-based stuff. And, one of the prints I have it for signing at conventions would be at one of Geronimo Stilton, in case there's kids, because it's fairly well known.
Yeah.
So
they probably listen to it over and over and over again. And
I had a friend of ours, Matt Ballard.
Yes.
He's an actor, great guy. And I met his kid once, and he told me before I had met his son, we were like in the city one day, and he said, Bill, I got to tell you, he says, my son just loves the Geronimo Stilton series. I'm like, oh, Matt, that is so nice. Anyway, a couple of months went by, and we were in the city again, and the elevator was out. We were all walking up the stairs, and it's Matt and his 8-year-old kid. And he went, whatever his son's name is, he goes, do you know who this is? And he's like, no. He goes, this is Bill Lobley. And the kid was like, huh? He goes, he does the Geronimo Stilton books. And the kid wasn't getting what he meant.
Yeah.
And I just went, his name was Stephen. I went, hello, Stephen. How are you? And he was like, he just lit up. And I was like, really nice to meet you. And he's like, so Matt was like, that was great. I'm like, what a blast. So yeah, the kids like it.
Yeah.
And then, then I do a video game and I'm cursing a blue stream, getting my head ripped off.
It's amazing.
So
you've done so much more of that. Now I keep chiming in like, oh, Bill did looping on this and I did that. I mean, I've only done a couple of movies at the looping. I've never done a video game. I used to do a lot of voiceovers, radio and TV commercial voiceovers.
Oh, that's where we had most of the eggs we've shared is in breaks at auditions, going to Eisenberg's on 20th Street, Manhattan, and having eggs and as much coffee as they had.
Yeah. I mean, we would meet in between because in those days you'd be running around. That was, our full-time job was coming in the city every day, going from one studio to another, auditioning for commercials. And then in between you'd be getting coffee and things like that.
Yeah.
But you'd be 5, 6, 7 auditions and you're running from one to another.
Yeah. But, and the thing about it was, and somebody brought, I think it was one of the guys, they'll bring their dad around, and it's like, hey buddy, this is my dad, and then he reads for what you're reading for and he gets the part.
Yeah.
But anyway, the dad is in there and, he's trying to get, you can tell the guy's like a working class guy, or not, I don't mean working class like, he's a sanitation worker or a plumber. I mean, he's a 9 to 5 guy, and that's how so that, and he was like, let me get this straight now. He says, so all of you are up for this part. And yeah, maybe it was on camera, maybe it was a voiceover. And then you get together afterwards, after you're competing for the same part, and have coffee and stuff. And we're like, he couldn't get his head around it because probably in business, it's like that guy made this widget.
Yeah. And
he took my business and I can't stand it. It's not like, hey, I got that business we were both going for. Oh, want to have dinner? It's like, it was so foreign to him. But it's like that. So here you and I are probably, if we're at an audition together, we're likely reading for the same thing. It's like, hey, and we wouldn't even say, how'd it go for you? That would be the rarest occasion to be like, listen, let me know what you're done. I'm going to get some water and then we'll go get breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, yeah. Okay, I'm done. It's like, let's go. And then we would go and we have breakfast and it's like, and we never talk about it again.
Yeah.
Strange thing. It's a strange.
And then every once in a while, it would be, like a radio commercial where there's 2 guys bantering and then we'd get it and be in there together. And that was like a real party.
Yeah.
Because you're doing a booking together. So nobody's mad about anything. You're making money.
It's like,
and then you get to play and then you go out and get a coffee.
Yeah. Yeah. That was fun. And that was, I think we did a couple of those. But always fun or else you're going to read with somebody, Yeah. It's like, you're going to read with Ann Scobie and you're like, oh, I'm so happy. And then the casting comes out and says, oh, Ann, a quick change. You're going to read with Tom. And then you're like, fuck. How? So Tom gets to read with Ann Scobie.
Yeah.
By the way, she's very good.
Yeah.
But
she was always the,
and it's like one of the favorites.
With her.
One of the favorites. And it's like, it could be anybody, and it's like, or, a guy that it's like, Bill and Tom, you're going to be reading this. Oh, Tom's going to be great. And then a guy comes in, hey, fellas, what's going on? Oh, would you mind reading with Tom? And I'm like, wait, whoa. We were supposed to. Yeah. And then you could be on the other side of that too, where you're going to read with Deborah, and you're like, oh, hey, Deborah, and you start going through it together, and then Tom walks in, and Deborah goes, ooh, Bill, would you mind if I read with Tom?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's all right, Deb.
Yeah.
Bill,
Yeah.
you're going to read with Aunt Scobie.
We have a great rapport.
Yeah. Well, no, Tommy's my good luck charm. And you're like, oh, fuck, okay, so what I would be then, your talisman? I'm like, what am I? Am I the other good luck charm? Tom's the rabbit's foot, and, I'm the voodoo head. It's like, so, but yeah, it was such a strange thing, but, and now it's home studio stuff.
Yeah.
It's so rare, because they've been like, why are we paying a casting director when these guys are recorded from their home studio? It's a different thing. Thank God you have it. Thank God you have this, Tom.
Yes. I mean, well, we can do this. I mean, not nobody's paying me SAG wages for this podcast, but
Oh, you didn't get I got double scale for that.
Yeah, he's doing okay. We're going to go to our third one now. Our third and final movie to wrap things up. See, this is why I saved. I wanted to save a couple of movies in case us talking about our career was just, lousy. You didn't want to end on that, right? But I think, let's go to our third movie. Okay. And this is from the modern era. And I think I might have even mentioned the title of it already. The In-Laws. The In-Laws is, I think it's one of the funniest movies ever. And
it is classic.
It's classic. And Peter Falk, I love. I mean,
Alan Arkin.
Yeah, Alan Arkin, Peter Falk. Alan Arkin, though, Peter Falk is amazing, right? Alan Arkin is so funny. Like, he makes me laugh so hard in this movie every time I watch it. And it's a totally wacky comedy.
But it's his slow burn. I just, and then you couple that with Peter Falk, who wasn't always, Columbo. He wasn't always Columbo. And another thing, to see him in that framework, that's why the movie works.
Yeah.
Because he's Peter Falk.
Yeah.
And Columbo is, kind of rumpled, and, it's like, this guy, he's never going to solve the crime. And he's like, one more question.
Yeah.
I put a pearl in your wife's umbrella, Damn you, Columbo! Jack Cassidy always discovers at the last minute that Columbo is a little bit smarter than, but that's a different kind of Peter Falk than the In-Laws.
Yeah. I mean, he's still got that Peter Falk energy, but then he's crazy. Like, you really don't know if he's completely nuts or not, but Alan Arkin is sure that he's nuts, and he's and he's just, he's driving him crazy, and then it gets even wackier, and then it ends up in a South American,
Yeah, well, he was in, Peter Falk was also in The Great Race, which is one of those huge, long, epic comedies, and it was Tony Curtis. The evil guy was Jack Lemmon. The
Great Race, right?
Was Jack Lemmon. Now, listen, that is, again, I'll give you, if you ask me for 3, I'll give you 30. But The Great Race would be one of those ones where it's just like, it's like Around the World in 80 Days, but with a car. Mm-hmm. And it is so good. And Peter Falk is in that as Jack Lemmon's flunky.
Oh, yeah.
Professor! Oh, yeah. Max! It's like, and then Tony Curtis and Natalie Wood. It's like, what is wrong with this movie? And then who's the guy? Hezekiah. I think it's Keenan Wynn.
I don't know. I mixed that up with it's a mad world.
Well, that's like the Cavalcade of Stars thing. It's like, you don't know who's going to show up. Yeah. It's like Joey Brown is going to be there with the, Oliver Hardy, whoever the hell's in it, Phil Silvers.
There was another movie I saw as a kid, and I haven't seen it in years and years, but I loved it. It was called Who's Minding the Mint?
Another good
with
James Hutton.
James Hutton, yeah, and it's kind of wacky. It's not as wacky as those,
but it's good.
It's a good movie.
Good. But yeah, The Great Race was like one of my favorites. So that's like, you're in the Peter Falk thing, so that was good. But so my third would be, and mostly a comedy, is Mr. Roberts.
Oh yeah.
So another thing. It's like, let me just go through who's in it. Jack Lemmon, Jimmy Cagney, Henry Fonda, William Powell. So what the hell is going to be wrong with this movie?
Yeah.
Nothing. Now, it's not a lot of women. They're nurses.
Yeah.
Now, one of my favorite things about Mr. Roberts, because again, from a stage play, is just how they got these superstars to be the main actors, but they clearly got the crew of the boat to be. They got the Broadway actors. So you've got understated everyman Henry Fonda. You got Jimmy Cagney, one of the quintessential movie actors. Jack Lemmon, comedy, wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. William Powell, the Thin Man. It's all perfect.
Yeah.
But the crew is the Broadway actors. So when someone, Mr. Roberts says something, Doug Roberts says something, and the line is, "Gee, Mr. Roberts, why would we do that?" The guy is like, "Gee, Mr. Roberts, why would we do that?"
I know.
So
he's trying to get the last row.
Yeah,
in the theater,
it's like,
right?
and listen, at the Broadhurst Theater, it's perfect. It's like, I love that madcap guy in the galley, but it's like, what do you mean, Mr. Roberts? We're supposed to have liberty, and they're mugging, and then he goes up and there's a scene where Mr. Roberts, he makes a deal with the captain, and he has no spoilers here, but he makes a deal with the captain, and he has to be mean to the crew basically and dress them down. And he does it, you do it because I said to do it. And then he goes upstairs and the guys watch him go up the ladder. And one of the guys is like this.
Yeah, that's right.
Because, when they're directing the Broadway show, the guy's like, when you scratch your head because you're perplexed, we really need to see you scratch your head like a monkey.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's eating him? I don't know. Stepanowski, Mr. Roberts, So anyway. But it's Jimmy Cagney head to head with Henry Fonda and, and Jack Lemmon just trying to get over on the nurses. Hey, boys, nurses.
Yeah.
And but really funny. And then, it has a very poignant ending. But it is just a freaking great. It's
so true. It really is a drama, but it has some wacky comedy in it. And, I remember watching it as a kid with my dad, every time it was on once a year and we would always watch it. But, it's these horny sailors, when the nurses come around,
Noises.
And there's this, comic scene when he's trying to they want to serve alcohol and they don't have any alcohol on the ship, but he's got to serve drinks. He's going to have a date with a nurse. And so they make alcohol
make scotch.
They make scotch.
But they don't have scotch. But what they do have is grain alcohol. They have, and then the guy says, "Well, let's get some." It's William Powell, the doctor. He's trying to doc. You got to help him out, because Jack Lemmon is about.
That is a great Henry. He's hard to do.
He's about to burst.
Hard to do. His voice.
So they get the grain alcohol, and then William Powell's like, I think it needs a little flavory. Needs a. And he goes, well, needs color. And he said, maybe the color of Coke. And Henry Fonda's like, God, I haven't seen a Coke in I don't know how long. And then Jack Lemmon's kind of like all forlorn and goes to his bunk and he pulls out a Coke, because no one has seen a Coke, how he pilfered it. I don't know. And then they're doing it and they're getting the color right. You want the red label or black label, and they get it right. And then they taste it and he goes, what about age? And he said, hair tonic. It's got a cold tar base. A drop of hair tonic to age it. That should age the daylights out of it. So they do it. And then Henry Fonda is going to take a sip. Now he's going to taste it.
Yeah.
Gets his hand on his hip and he sips it. And he's like, he can barely swallow it. He goes, it does taste a little bit like scotch, and Jack Lemmon's like, sweet, she'll never know the difference. But it's like, that's just one scene. Yeah. So watch the stateroom scene, watch the farting scene from 10, and watch the scotch making scene from Mr. Roberts. You'll find them on YouTube. I'm relatively sure, but boy, they just stand out.
Yeah, that's great. So there it is. There's your so let's recap our 3 essentials, right? What did I even say? I had duck soup. I had the Philadelphia Story and
the in-laws.
The in-laws. And Bill had
I had the court jester.
Oh yeah.
Arthur / bringing up baby, and Mr. Roberts.
Oh yeah, these are great. And you know what? Like I said, when I did
look them up. I mean, we've got 30s, 40s, 50s,
Don't just look them up. I'm telling you, they have to watch these movies. Just like the one we did with Dion Baia. I said, I envy the people who watch this and they say, you know what, I'm going to go out and watch those movies. Imagine, we just gave them a great film festival.
What a great weekend.
Yes.
If they're snowed in or there's an earthquake or an eclipse. But there was a very famous film critic, and somebody asked him, what would be one of your favorite film experiences? What was your favorite film experience? He said, it's something I think about a lot. And he said, and he's talking about a Hitchcock movie, he said, to see The Third Man for the first time, because it's like, and if you've seen the movie, it'd be like, oh yeah, because you don't know what's going to happen. But he said the movie is so good, but once you see it, it's like, I know it's going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Dorothy will wake up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, oh, it didn't happen, but
forget that. I mean, The Third Man, recently I watched The Third Man and Lady from Shanghai, and I've seen them dozens of times. I can't remember what's going to happen. Same thing with Maltese Falcon.
Well, some of them
I can't remember what's going to happen next. It's so confusing. The Third Man is so confusing. Every time I see The Third Man, I think I'm watching it for the first time.
Right. But if you don't know, and it's like, what about a movie like It's a Wonderful Life? Seeing that for the first time.
Oh yeah.
Now that like tears your heart out every time. But I remember the first time I saw it, we were at college, and it's like, well, we're screening, Cinevents is screening It's a Wonderful Life. And some people are like, oh my God, have you seen it? And you're like, no. And then of course they ask the stupid question, you haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life? It's like, what's the problem? And then we went, and we're all like in tears, these strapping college boys, and we're like, and one of the guys says, guys, he goes, let's get out there and do some good. That was this thing. It's like, now everybody is like, a goody.
It's like you're in an old movie all of a sudden.
It's like,
hey, fellas,
let's be do-gooders. And we were like, yes. And now we're walking around a college campus on like a Wednesday night at like 11 o'clock. It's like, there's nobody out. There's no good to do. So you do some mischief. And then, turn yourself in, I guess.
All right. Well, that's our, we did it, Bill. Now, this is quite extensive, actually.
Yes.
I thought we'd have trouble filling an hour, but we're more than an hour.
I had no doubt. Once you said the topic, I'm like, Tom, we're good.
Okay. So we're going to have drinks and maybe dinner after this, but
yeah, that'll be fun.
That's it. So we'll have to do this again. About. And I'm telling you, if we just focused on movies, because imagine we could do TV shows, we could do 70s TV, we could do 6 sitcoms, we could do a thing about the 60s TV, like Hogan's Heroes.
You can do
like
silent stuff, because a lot of the
silent
stuff, Buster Keaton and Harold Lloyd, Charlie Chaplin,
it's never ending. So
no.
We'll have you back and we'll do it again. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Bill Lobley. We'll see you. Oh, I pressed